I have heard of Bonei Olam, and I knew that they were a big organization, but I didn't realize that Coca-Cola was a sponsor. That's amazing. Now, you'll forgive me or you won't, but my kids rarely believe me when I tell them that I actually speak to people. They say, oh, you go places, what do you really do? So if you don't mind. Okay, proof in the pudding. It's a kosher phone. So there's a very well-known story. When I say very well-known, like every time I say very well-known, it means because I know it, and soon it will be well-known to you as well. And the story is told about Rav Shach, and somebody came to Rav Shach, and he said to him the following. He says, Rebbe, I have a shaila. He says, what's a shaila? He says, you know, I just had a baby girl, and I want to know if I should be making a kiddush. Should I make a kiddush? I had a baby girl. He said, I don't understand what's your shaila? What are you asking? He says, listen, come on, we all know. It's a girl, you know? It's not a boy. So do we make a kiddush for a girl? Do we make a simcha? You know, it's just a girl. Now, I don't know if anyone here is from the Iraqi communities, but I have a good friend of mine who I actually just saw today. Baruch Hashem, I saw him today because I'm a little exhausted. I've been traveling a little, and I was in Manhattan teaching today, and I needed a place to crash. And I taught in the school where a young lady came over to me and said, oh, my father wanted me to say, just you should say hello. I said, who's your father? She said, Rabbi Shlomo Farchi. I don't know if anyone knows of Shlomo Farchi, but he's a good friend of mine. And he told me a story that he's Syrian. And then when he, a lot of people, they say, oh, you're the girl? Siman labanim, you're the boys. And he had a girl, and then he had a second girl, then he had a third girl. And then when he had another baby, he called up his grandmother. And he said, Safta, or I don't speak Syrian, whatever they say. Safta, I had a baby. So she goes, no, Maya. Said, what was it? He said, it was a girl. And she goes, lo nora, pama ba. Now, I personally don't understand the whole concept because, Baruch Hashem, my oldest are girls. And lamaisa, it's very helpful. I have boys. And I'm just saying, lamaisa, girls are very helpful. Let's put it like that. Boys are great. Girls are very helpful. So he goes and says, should I make a kiddush? So if Shach asked the following, let me ask you a question. Let's say you would have gotten married and you wouldn't be able to have a child. And year after year you waited for a child. And year after year, and 5 years pass, and 5, 6, and 7, and after 10 years you're zocheh to have a child. Would you make a kiddush? He said, of course. If I went through such an ordeal, of course I would make a kiddush. He said, so the Ribbono Shel Olam spared you 10 years of suffering. You're not going to make a kiddush? Unfortunately, there's so many people out there that suffer. So many people that just don't, I don't know everyone here, I don't know what everyone's going through, but everyone's going through something. But not everyone's going through everything. And I was speaking right before this to Rav Bachman and mentioned just until a person goes through something themselves, it's very hard to really understand, to really get the message. Like we say, oh no, I get it, I understand. Oh yeah, imo anochi b'tzara, like I'm with you, like I hear you, I feel you. But do you really feel it? Do you really get it? I can tell you personally, I've had the privilege of teaching in many, many places. I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of people. And, because of that, a lot of people, it's like, I've mentioned in the past, a lot of people, when they see me speak and when they meet me in person, it's like everybody has this feeling that when you've heard someone speak enough times, you get the feeling as if they know you because you know them. People approach like, hey. I say, hey. They say, I watch you on Torah anytime. I say, oh, thank you. But it's almost like they're waiting for me to be like, Rachel, is that you? I didn't even realize, of course, the Torah anytime. Like, you don't know. So people call me and say, can you come visit someone's not feeling well? Can you come down for someone? Can you give a little chizik for somebody? Can you leave a message? Can you do something? And I'll tell you, okay, I do what I can. I do what I can. It's not true. I do some stuff, and I can do them a little more. But until someone actually goes through something, it's very, very hard to understand really what it is. And I know perhaps many of you know that last year, Baruch Hashem, I still have to give a hakaras hatov to the Ribono Shalom because I was in a very bad place last year. Last year, right before Rosh Hashanah, I was admitted into the hospital. I ended up in the intensive, what they call the ICCU. It's not a stutter, it's the intensive care cardiac unit. Because I got what's known as sepsis. I got a blood infection. And the blood infection then spread to my heart rate dropped in half, and I ended up in the ICCU. I could just tell you that I brought down the average age by about 50 years. And it was an intense experience. And there's a lot to the story that I'm not going to go into because it's not relevant for tonight, but what I'm going to tell you is that when I went through that, I finally understood, wow, what does it mean that someone's sick and someone's in the hospital and someone doesn't know what's going to happen? And every single doctor said to me, when I ask, so what's the problem? What can be done? They all said the same thing. This is in Israel. So they said, Anachnu lo yodim. I said, what? They said, we don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? They said, doctors don't know everything. We don't know everything. They said it more like, we don't know everything. What do you want? We don't know everything. I said, what can you do? We don't know. Okay. A day passes, another day. I end up, now I'm in the ICCU. It's Rosh Hashanah day. I said, Al tedag. Machar. Hamumche bebradycardia. Which is Hebrew for bradycardia. The expert in slow heart rate is going to come visit you. He's going to tell you what to do. I said, great. Okay, wonderful. There's hope. So what happens the next day? I'm going to go with this one. So what happens the next day? The next day, the expert comes in, the mumche, he comes into the room, and he says to me, he checks everything, he looks at everything, and I said, okay, so what's the problem? He says, me'od muzar, which means very, very strange. I said, listen, I wasn't asking you how you felt about me. I wanted to know my medical prognosis. Maybe we can talk about that. Personal we'll deal with after. So he says, "Lo, mod muzar. I don't. Your charts are very strange." I said, "So what's the problem? Rosh Hashanah day. What's the problem?" Ani lo yodea. Chag sameach. He said, "Chag sameach? What? What does that even mean? Ta lo yodea chag sameach." So mi yodea? Echad mi yodea. I said, "Do not start singing Pesach songs. It's Rosh Hashanah. Tell me what it is." He had no idea. Baruch Hashem. I got through it with tefillah and with tshuva and with tzedakah, obviously, and with anyone who here who davened. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if you didn't daven for me, I have a lot of things I want to say, but it's not the time. When someone goes through something, then they go ahead and they understand what it really is. But what if we didn't go through something? What if we were blessed that we were able to have health, refuah, nachas, children, marriage? We go through things and things happen and they go and they're working. Everything's working. What do you do then? You ever stop and think for a second? It didn't have to be that way. It didn't have to be that way. It was a chesed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided for whatever reason, we're going to give this to you. We're going to give this to you. You think you deserve it? You think you deserve it coming? That's like the Bali Tosfos. That's the Canaan Bali Tosfos says by Leah. When Leah has her fourth child and she says, Hapam odes Hashem, now I'm going to thank Hashem. What's the very next words in the pasuk? V'ta'amod miledes. She stopped having children. Later she ended up having more, but she stopped having children. Says the Canaan Bali Tosfos, say, why would she stop having children? She just said thank you. And he suggests the reason is, because why are you thanking Hashem only now? You're thanking Hashem now because you had your fourth kid? Because he did a little math, right? There's four wives, and if there are 4 wives, they're going to have 12 shvatim. You do the math, it comes out each one's going to have 3 kids. I had Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, so I named them 3 children. I have a 4th, what? Above and beyond, Hapam odes Hashem. Now I'm going to thank Hashem. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kavyocha says, now you thank me, and only now? Okay. I don't think you get the point. That's it. No more children. What do you mean now? We should have named every single kid Yehuda. It would get a little awkward, I get it. But every kid, we wake up in the morning, Yehuda, what? It would actually help a lot, I'm assuming, if you have many children. It's time to go to school. Who are you talking to? Yehuda, come, everybody. Into the station wagon, Sienna. So we go ahead and we understand the fact that upon Hashem, now I go and I think Hashem. Well, we have to recognize the fact that why do we have to wait to go through something in order to get the point? Let's get the point and not have to go through something. Let's recognize what Hashem does for us and be able to do it. Experience is the best teacher. So let's experience. But let's experience in a way that we don't have to experience, but we could still experience. Let's experience Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael is suffering. It's the reality. Everybody in this room has something going on. Everyone in another room, wherever you are. Everybody is going through something. Everybody has some sort of suffering. Everyone has some sort of pain. You ever stop and think for a minute, what's someone else going through? Get outside of myself. What are they going through? And let me go ahead and see if I can help them. So then we say, okay, I'm going to help someone. I'm going to help someone because I'm a good person. I'm a good person, so I'm going to help someone else. And then we go and we help them, and we feel good about ourselves, and we think it of the terms. When I say we, okay, I mean general. If you don't think it, wonderful. If you do it, fine. And we think, look, we help someone, we feel good about it. We feel wonderful that we go and we help someone. You ever stop and think for a minute, why were you given the opportunity to help someone? There's a shul in Eretz Yisrael. I live in Eretz Yisrael, and when I first moved to Eretz Yisrael, I was living in a neighborhood called Ramat Eshkol. I don't know if you ever heard of it before. There are a few Jews there. And I'm living in Ramat Eshkol, and I davened in a shul called Pagi. One of the many shuls that are around there. And when I was davening in Pagi, I heard a story. I wasn't there at the time, but about 10, 15 years earlier, there was the Gabbai Tzedakah. The Gabbai Tzedakah of the shul got up one day and said the following idea, an amazing concept. He got up and he said, we have to give tzedakah, we have to help. But let's take a look at a perspective of what it means to give tzedakah. What does it mean to help? What does it mean to do for someone else? He said, imagine I were to ask you to do something for me. I'd like you to do me a favor. Can you deliver something for me? I have this $10 and I'd like to give this $10 to someone, and you're on your way anyway. Maybe you can go ahead or even go out of your way and give this $10 and deliver it. Can you do that for me? And you say, if it's on my way, and you know what, fine, I'll do it for you. And he says, don't get me wrong. I'm not just doing it for nothing. I'll give you something. If you'll be willing to do this for me, I'll give you something. Intriguing. What will you give me? If you're willing to give this $10, I'll give you $90. Good deal? Yes or no? I guess not. Good deal? Yes or no? That's a good deal, right? You give 10, I'll give you 90. That's what we call meiser. We think, kochi v'yotzim yodi. I go out to work, I do my thing, whatever it is, I make $100, and well, if I have to give $10 of my $100, thank God it's not 20. Look what I'm doing. I'm such a good person. When the Rebbeinu Shalom says, are you kidding? The Gemara says, you know why there are poor people? In order to be able to give tzedakah. Someone comes along and they give you an opportunity to go ahead and do tzedakah, and you don't take it. There's an opportunity to do chesed and you miss that opportunity. Would you give it up? You think that when we go and we give that we're helping them? The Rebbeinu Shalom says, I'm going to give you $90. Who are we helping by giving the tzedakah? We're helping ourselves. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be with the mentality. A person comes to your door and says, oh, here, $10, 90, yes! The mentality is you want to help the person, but recognize there's a serious benefit from helping someone. And you think that you did for them, they did for you, because had they not been there, you wouldn't have the opportunity to give them. You don't have the opportunity to give them, you don't have the opportunity to get something. We get so much more than we give. When we help others, we really help ourselves. When we help others, we really help ourselves. I'll tell you an amazing story. You probably have heard it before. Just don't be that guy. The story is told about somebody who was in his home and he gets a knock on the door. Not a wealthy person, very hard, challenging life was going on. But okay, he gets a knock, he opens the door. Not that if you didn't have a challenging life, you don't open the door, but you get the point. Someone knocks on the door. They open the door, and there's a woman standing there like, tzedakah, can I have some tzedakah? And he goes, lady, I'm really sorry, I just don't have any tzedakah. No, come on, I need tzedakah, I need something. Please, could you give me tzedakah? I need you to give me something, I need tzedakah. Lady, I'm sorry, I don't have any tzedakah. Geveret, liha, mihela. I don't have anything. No, I need it. Don't you understand, lady? I don't have anything. Well, what do you have? Lady, it's like Erev Shabbos. The only thing I have is chicken. You know what I mean? I made chicken for Shabbos. It's the only thing I have. She says, give me chicken. Serious? Give me chicken. If you don't have money, give me chicken. He's like, lady, I don't have chicken. You just said you have chicken. I don't have chicken. All of a sudden, the chicken walks by. She goes, what was that? I don't know. What was nothing? Close the door. He goes, I'm sorry, lady, I don't, fine. Okay, you really need it? Yeah, I need it. Now, get me the chicken now. He's like, relax. And he runs to the kitchen, opens the fridge to get the chicken. And when he opens up the fridge, he sees his little child turning blue. Takes the child out, and this saved the child's life. He went back to give the chicken, and the lady said, thank you. It had to be. Okay, maybe it was. I don't know. It's like, I've heard other versions, and it was a man. Anyway, so the point is, that's not even the point. The point is, he's willing to go and help. And what ended up happening? He thinks he was helping this lady. Fine, I'll help her. In the end, what happened? He helped himself. When we help other people, we really help ourselves. Who knows what happens when we go and we give tzedakah, or when we daven for someone, or when we help someone. Sometimes we never see the end of the story. The reason I've mentioned to you before the concept that I was in my circumstance last year is because I wanted to share with you the following story. One of my Talmidim, who I consider a friend of mine, he still considers himself a Talmud, and it's very flattering. One of my Talmidim, friends, he was married for a number of years. I think it was about 7 years. He didn't have any children. Tried, and finally they had a baby boy. They had a baby boy. We were close. And I said, you know what? My wife was so excited this. My wife makes a cake. I would say I made a cake, but who am I kidding? I can cake, okay? I can bake cakes. I can cake, we call it. But she goes and she makes a cake, right? You know, we had to give a cake, for the Shalom Zachar. I said, okay. I call him up. I said, Plony. He said, I don't like when you call me that. Could you just call me my name? I said, okay, whatever. But for you, I'll say Plony. I said, listen, I want to bring over something. Are you home? He said, oh, wow, thank you so much. It was totally unexpected. Thank you. I come to his apartment, and I go, and he opens the door, and I say, okay, here's the cake. Is the baby going to be here tonight? Maybe come for the Shalom Zachar. He says, I don't know. I'm not sure if the baby's going to be here tonight. I said, oh, okay. No questions. You don't really, not a good idea to ask questions. So I said, okay. And I'm about to leave. And he said, listen, I want to tell you something, but I didn't tell anyone. I said, okay. He said, the reason why the baby might not be here is because the doctors are nervous that there might be something wrong with the baby. I said, what are they nervous about? He said, they're nervous that maybe there's bleeding in the brain. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to be. I don't know what the story is. I said, okay, so what's your wife's name? And maybe I'll daven for the baby. So he tells me his wife's name. I said, what's the baby's name? Tinoch, right? Okay, right? Yeled. I said, okay. So I go home, I daven for the baby. Baruch Hashem. Everything turns out it's fine. Cutie pie. Cutie pie. I'm just telling you right now. This kid is cute. There's cute kids and there are cute kids. There are kids you say are cute and there are kids that are cute. And this kid you say is cute and they are. And let me tell you something. Okay. Fast forward a little bit after that. Just a little bit after that. I end up in the hospital. They're checking me. They don't know what it is. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what to do. They're checking left and right. When they came into the hospital, it was a state of shock. They didn't know what was wrong with me. They didn't even know what to do. But in the emergency room, they start working me. And I could tell you, I was out of it. Not unconscious, just out of it. I know that hospital that I was in, Hadassah Har Tzofim. It's in my neighborhood. I know the hospital. I've been there many, many times because I used to volunteer for Magen David Adom. I worked as a EMT. I've been in that hospital. I've been in that emergency room many times. But I had no idea where I was. Even though when I afterwards went back, they're like, oh, you were there. I'm like, that's where I was the whole time. I had no idea. It's totally like they're passing me through on that little thing that, what do you call those things? You got it, I don't know. The things, yeah? Hadavar hazeh. And they go ahead, and I just see like light. And then they're checking me. And then they go ahead, and one person starts checking my eyes. And when I'm asking, what's the problem? What's the problem with me? They say, Anachnu lo yodim. We don't know. Do you know? I don't know. What about you? No one knows. Then they go and they're checking my eyes, and this doctor, then they start going like a rapid fire Hebrew, but I don't think it was really Hebrew. There's like, brr, that's what they said. And I was like, brr, I got a question. What are you doing? So the guy's like, open your eyes. I'm like, okay. And he's like looking in my eyes with lights, similar to these two, which you can't see, and neither can I. And they were checking my pupils. And the guy then goes to the other guy, he goes, brr. The girl goes, yeah, girl, brr, brr. All right, that's it, let's go, let's take him now. I'm like, where are you taking me? He said, we have to take you for a CT scan. I said, how come? I said, what's wrong? They said, you might have bleeding in your brain. I said, okay, let me get this straight. For 10 minutes, I'm asking what's wrong with me. You say, I don't know. Did you have to tell me what you just said? Couldn't you just say, I don't know? That's the time you want to show your medical prowess, And I went in, and Baruch Hashem, it wasn't. Or who knows, but it wasn't. And I only thought about this morning. Who knows? Maybe the reason why Hashem put me in that particular moment of my circumstance was to point out to me, you were willing to daven for somebody else who's going through something? Maybe this is what helped you. We have no idea. And we do a chesed, and we do a kindness, and we do another, and we think we help others. But when we help others, we help ourselves. We help others, we help ourselves. There's a very famous idea, and again, maybe famous only because I know it, but Rav Pam. We say Hashem, kel rachem v'chanun erech apayim v'rav chesed v'emes. We say Hashem, could you go through all the 13 midos, who is Hashem? And he asked, what does that mean, chesed ve'emes? What do we say chesed ve'emes? What does that mean? It sounds like a contradiction because chesed means above and beyond. It's not something that you're supposed to get. Emes is like din. It is what it is. It's the truth. And we know Hashem wanted to create the world like that. Hashem wanted to create the world on din. Allah b'machshavta is going to create a din with judgment. It's not going to work. You do it at a vera, it's over. So he does a chesed, and we have a mixture. But here it says chesed ve'emes. What's chesed ve'emes? So he said like this. He said, if you take a look by the psukim by Rachel Imenu. Rachel Imenu doesn't have any children. As a matter of fact, all the avos and imos, according to many, weren't able to have children. The only way that we exist, I don't know, just to quote a great Rav Shweki, we are a miracle. In Yiddish, it's V is a miracle. We're a miracle. All of Klal Yisrael is built off tefillah. The whole thing doesn't make sense. Some of them didn't have wombs. They were barren. They didn't have the ability of having children. Yet the daven, we come through tefillah. That's how we come from. We come from tefillah. But it says, Vayiskar Elokim es Rachel vayiftach es rachma, that Hashem remembered Rachel and opened up her womb. And she had a child. What did she remember? What does that mean, Vayiskar Elokim? What's Vayiskar? Every time it says, and Hashem remembered, it's referencing something. It says, Rashi, what does he remember? He remembers the fact that she gave the simanim. She gave the simanim. Rachel gave the simanim to Leah. Now this, by the way, I don't know if anyone's heard the Pshat Rav Shvadron says. What way did she do it? She did it in such a way that Leah didn't even know that Rachel was giving it to her, which is a whole discussion of sensitivity, which is very much connected to the sensitivity and the beauty that comes from this. Gave over the message in such a beautiful way, gave the simanim that she shouldn't even know, so she shouldn't be embarrassed. Comes the time, about to pull the switcheroo, and she goes and she tells the simanim, whatever they were, chala, nida, lakosneros, perhaps, right? Gives over the simanim. How do we know that Leah didn't even know about it? Because when it came time that Leah, Reuven brings Leah dudaim, these certain plants, and what ends up happening, comes along Rachel and says, and it's perhaps known to have some sort of help with fertility, and comes along Rachel, and Rachel says, can I have those? Can I have some of those? And she goes, what? First you take my husband. Now you want my plants. What's next? Excuse me. What did Rachel do for Leah? Rachel gave Leah everything. Did Rachel expect to be able to marry Yaakov after that? She expects she's giving it all up. At this stage, she says, I don't even know. I give everything up. I'm giving it all up. This is my future. We're in love. Vayehav. It's a very unique thing that happens with Yaakov and Rachel. We don't find in the Torah and other places that it should say that they love each other even before the relationship develops. It's an amazing concept, a whole nother shir. But he goes ahead and says, I'm willing to give it up not to embarrass my sister. In a way that she shouldn't even know that I'm doing it, because that would embarrass her also. The best teacher is a teacher that gives over the information in a way that the people don't even know they're getting the information. And they walk out thinking, oh yeah, what did I even learn from that person? Not even realizing that they taught them everything. He remembered that she did such a thing. She's willing to do such a thing. So then, since you're willing to do such a thing, okay, now says Hashem, I'm going to be willing to do it for you. Mida keneged mida. And we know till today, Rachel mivako al boneo. And Hashem says, only because you, bizechutech v'shavu banim legvulam, only because you're crying, you're willing to do such an amazing thing, I'm willing to do for you. Says Rav Pam, what's chesed v'emes? I'm going to share with you something which is so unbelievably beautiful, but also very, very scary. Because you're going to think back to times in your life, and you're going to be very excited, and you're going to be also very nervous and sad. Perhaps. What does it mean, Rav Chesed? Chesed ve'emes? What it means is that maybe al pi din, al pi emes, the truth is a person doesn't deserve to have something. Says Rapam, though, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will always give someone an opportunity to be able to change the emes to a new emes. Meaning, if you are willing to go ahead and do some sort of chesed and do some sort of kind act, that act itself will now perhaps change the emes that now you can get something that maybe you wouldn't have had before. Meaning, says Rapam, had she not given the simanim, and she could have done that, who said that she had to give them? She didn't have to give the simanim, she decided to do that. Had she not, then Leah would have been exposed, and they never would have got married, and it would have went straight to Rachel, and Rachel would have been married. Says Rapam, beautiful, they would have got married, but she never would have had children. The din is she never would have had children. But since she decided to do a chesed, says Hashem, now, you opened up to do a chesed. Now I'm going to change things around. That now the truth is, Hashem tzilcha. Hashem is our shadow. You behave in such a way. You're willing to behave in such a way to give everything up. I'm willing to give everything up. Whatever it was, I'm going to give it to you. Famous Gemara, Yud Zayin and Aleph, Rosh Hashanah, Kol Ma'avir Midosam Avir Kol Pshav. You get the idea. You give it up, God gives it up. Hashem tzilcha yad minecha. Amazing opportunities. So what does that mean? What's the point? If you have an opportunity to do chesed, if chesed comes and knocks on your door, think long and hard if you're going to decide not to take that opportunity. Because we think, okay, because I'm the one who helps others. And if I don't help this time, it's okay, I didn't help this time. All right. No, you understand. If you don't help this time, this might be your time. This might be the opportunity that awaits you. This might be your chance to be able to get something if we just grab it. Chesed opportunities are abound. It doesn't mean every second you have to balance. But at the same time, if you could do something and we don't do something, what's going to happen then? Can you imagine the cheshbon in Shamayim? A person gets upstairs and Hashem says, why didn't you help them? What's going to be our answer? If there's an answer, there's an answer. But if there's not an answer, there's not an answer. And not only that, Hashem's going to say, don't you understand? It wasn't for me I was doing that. It wasn't even for them. This was put there for you to be able to have a chance. I don't want to get too Kabbalistic on you, but I'll share with you a story that I just heard from Rav David Goldwasser. Perhaps you've seen the story. He told a story, I believe it's about Rav David Abu Chatzera. But there was a Rav Abu Chatzera who was driving along. He was driving in a car, and his driver, they were driving, and he says to his driver, suddenly he saw a Coca-Cola truck, Coca-Cola truck. And he says to his driver, quickly, get in front of that truck and stop the truck. Could you imagine someone saying that to you? You're driving the car. Someone goes, go in front of the truck, stop the truck. He's like, what? He said, did you not hear me? Drive in front of the truck and stop the truck. He's like, Kvod Rav, it's dangerous. Like, what do you want me to do? He said, I told you what I want you to do. Listen to me. I'm telling you what you have to be doing. I'm the Rav. Listen what I'm telling you. He says, okay, if you're telling me, all right. He speeds up. He gets in front of him, and he starts to slow down. So the truck is forced to slow down until finally it comes to a stop. And when it came to a stop, this guy gets out of the truck, and let me tell you, he was not a happy camper. He goes, מה אתה עושה? איך אתה נוהג? מה מסוכן? איך אתה לא יודע איך לנהוג? מה אתה למד? אתה למד? אתה לומד? מה אתה חדש? He goes, you don't even know what you're doing. How dare you do such a thing? And he's going on and on and on and on. He turns to Rav Abuchatzera, and how could you even let this guy drive you? Don't you realize how dangerous this is? Do you know how dare this is crazy? When he finally calmed down, the Rav says to him, excuse me. I'm very thirsty. And I see that you have a Coca-Cola truck. Can you get me a drink? You want a drink? I'll give you a drink. Come here, Rabbi. A drink? And he goes on a whole new rampage. Like, how dare you? Ah! He finally calms down and he goes, you guys are nuts. And he walks away, gets back in his truck, and he pulls off. A few blocks later, he gets into a car accident, and he's killed on the spot. Rav Abuchatzera asks the driver, you're probably wondering why I did what I did. Well, let me tell you something. I saw on the top of that truck the Malach HaMavis dancing. And I said, I have to give him an opportunity to do something in order to be saved. So I gave him a chance to do a chesed, to do something, that it should change the din. He didn't take the message. What can I do? You think when we do for others, we're helping them? When we do for others, we're doing for ourselves. The greatest form, and really every one of us ultimately have a drive of ourselves that pushes us to do things. By nature, we're selfish. You take a look, that's why babies, when they're born, that's not why, but you take a look and you see when babies are born, they're born like this, right? Their hands are closed. And it's always cute. Like you put your finger in and they grab your finger. Yay. And you're like, they love me. They're holding my finger. And then they smile at you. You're like, they're smiling. Your mother will tell you what that is. They love me. Because inherently it's all about me, give me, give me, give me, give me. When a person is nifter, if anyone's ever seen a nifter, the hands are like this. Because hopefully through their lives, they've gone beyond themselves and slowly opened up, not to take, but to give. Rachmana litzlan, those who are born like this, and die like this. When we go ahead and we give to others, we're really giving to ourselves. The greatest way of being selfish is being selfless. It's the greatest level of selfishness. Because the more you give, the more you get. The more you give, the more you get. The more you give, the more you get. You think you're giving to someone else, and the reality is you're giving to self. That's the classic idea that we know the Mefarshim speak about. What's vinasanu? Vinasanu. Why am I doing this? Because the trup over the Torah, when it says vinasanu, is the idea of kadma v'azla. Vinasanu is it goes back and it goes forward. We saw before a beautiful palindrome. Wow. I'm going to share with you another palindrome. That's vinasanu. Vav nun, taf, or saf, nun, vav. When you give, you get. When you give, you get. When you give one way, you get back the other way. You think you're helping someone and it's helping them. It's helping you. I heard an amazing, amazing story. Not a good one, an amazing one. I was in Eretz Yisrael. A friend of mine is Rav Gav. Now, you may have seen the story brought down. I think Nachman Seltzer writes the story. But I heard the story from the one who told it to him. Ari Gottesman. I hope I got his name right. Otherwise, it's just going to be very embarrassing at some point in time when someone says, I got it wrong. He said the following story. He said that essentially that his grandfather, maybe it was his great-grandfather, an ancestor of his. This goes back to World War I. In World War I was fighting with the Germans. A lot of Jews were in the German army in World War I. And they were fighting, and they were in the Italian Alps. Germany was fighting Italy. And this particular guy, his job, his mission was to go ahead, to be a scout. He was a Jewish man, a religious man, I believe. His job was to be a scout, to go out to see if there's any soldiers, and then to come back and tell the other soldiers in order to make sure that we can mount an attack. And he went ahead and he found these Italians on the mountain. Everything's snowy, everything's crazy conditions. And he goes out there and he sees a group of Italians. He goes back to his people and he says, all right, we found some guys, let's go. And they attack them and they capture them. And they capture them and they're going to take them back as prisoners of war. One of the German soldiers says, why should we bother bringing them back? It's such a trek. Let's just kill them here. It's snowing, it'll get covered over, no one will ever know about it, and then they'll be able to get through it and everything will be wonderful. Don't worry about it. What do you say? Why don't we just do that? And this man, my friend's grandfather or so, says, not a chance. Not a chance. You're not killing innocent people. What do you mean innocent? There are enemies. Yeah, but even though they're enemies, they don't have any weapons. We took them away. You can't kill these people. You don't do such things. He says, listen, get out of the way. You either get out of the way or we're going to take you down too. He says, all right, let's do that. And he stands in front of them. He says, if you're going to take them down, you're going to kill them, you're killing me first. They're like, get out of the way. He's like, no. They say, okay. Fine, we'll take him back. They take him back. Fast forward. Tell him I'll call him later. Fast forward. A number of years later, he's living in Chicago. He's living in Chicago, this young, strapping man who was a soldier in Italy, in the German army, and he is now living in Italy and he's working, in Chicago, and he's working as construction. And as he's working in construction, what happens one day? There's a terrible fire in Chicago, very, very well known. Horrible fire, destroys many, many buildings. And there was one particular building that got the brunt of it. And him as a construction worker, he always needs supplies. So he went to the owner of the building. He said, do you mind if I go into your building and if I could salvage any sort of stuff that you're going to destroy anyway? He says, you know what? We have insurance. It's getting demolished. You could go and take whatever you want. So he backs his truck up. He backs his truck up to this building. He goes in and he starts putting everything in. He's taking glass, he's taking wood, he's taking nails, he's taking whatever he can take, chairs and tables, whatever is there that's salvageable. And after a long, hard day of working, he's okay, so that's it. It's time to call it to quits. And he goes over to wash his hands. There was a faucet. He turns on the faucet. He puts his hand in to wash his hands. And as he's washing his hands, he realizes the water doesn't look so clean. It looks very brown. And he's like, what is this? Disgusting. He figures it's from the fire, but then he takes his hands to his nose and he smells it. And it didn't smell like water. What was it? So I'll tell you something amazing. Anybody remember, I remember when I was a kid in the 1920s, there was a thing called the Prohibition. And it was hard for me because I was an alcoholic then. I could be whatever I want then. Anyway, so you weren't allowed to have alcohol, you weren't allowed to sell and whatever it is. And what happened is that there was a black market going on and the mafia were collecting all of the alcohol they could find. And the police knew better, but they didn't know where they stored it. Where did they store it? They stored it under this building. Under this building was a huge tank filled with alcohol, and this was the faucet for all of the alcohol. He just found the faucet. This guy is gonna be rich. But as he's washing his hands and he closes it, he hears two guys behind him talking in Italian. And they say, pasta, linguini, al dente, arrivederci, che bella faccia, which means, oh no, he found our stash. That's word for word. The only Italian I know is my barber. When I grew up in New York, my barber, his name was, Italian guy's name was Tito. He used to say to me, Gabriel, che bella faccia. I said, what does that mean? He goes, you have a beautiful face. I said, get your hands off me. And that's my Italian. But he goes then and he says, here's these two guys talking to each other. He spoke Italian because he was stationed in Italy. So he spoke Italian and he's like thinking, he's like, uh-oh, they're talking about it. He found it. We have to kill him. So he plays dumb. He like shuts it and he turns around and he goes, sees the guys are like, Where do you think you're going? He says, oh, was machst du? How is everyone? And they say to him, you're not going anywhere. Well, why not? What seems to be the issue, gentlemen? Is there a problem? He goes, no, we know you know. Know what? What are you talking about? Sit down. He's like, sit where? No, kumsitz. We're having a kumsitz. Sit down. You're going to sing with the fishies. So he goes ahead and he sits down. They tie him up. They say the big boss likes to deal with people like this. Okay, so they call the big boss and they say to him, boss, yeah, what is it? I'm saying marinara, olives, you know? He's like, what? Marinara, olives? Someone found the alcohol? He said, yeah. He said, that's, I'll be right over. He comes in. So he walks into the room, and when he walks into the room, he sees the two guys there. He looks at the guy tied up, and he goes to his friends, to his two goons. He says, I'll take care of it. Get out of here. I said, boss, are you sure? Are you sure you want us to leave? Out. You heard me? Forget about it. Go. So they go. He looks at the guy. He's tied up, and he starts talking to him in Italian. And he says, tell me, where were you the night of, I don't know the night, but where were you during World War I? And the guy doesn't respond to him. He's speaking Italian. He goes, io no parlo italiano. Io no parlo italiano. If I could just interject for a minute. I was once in Italy. Personally, I was in Firenze. Firenze is Florence. They got it confused with their spelling. And on the way back, I was sitting on a plane that was flying from Italy to Israel. And I was sitting next to a priest. This is the beginning, you know, so there's a rabbi and a priest on a plane. And I turned to the guy, because I always love speaking with these guys, hey, come on, man, wake up, you're ridiculous, you know? If you're gonna wear the black and white, at least make it black and black, it's more stylish. And I turned to the guy and I said to him, hi, how are you? He says, io no parlo inglés. I don't speak English. He says, como stai? Como stai? It means in Italian, how are you? I said, io no parlo italiano. So then we just look at each other. And I'm like, Español? And the guy goes, sí. That means Spanish. And the guy said, today is brought to you by the letter C. And he said, yes, Spanish. I said, great. So I said to him, I started to ask him about Yoshka. I said, tell me something. Yoshka. He goes, sí. I said, ¿tú crees o tú sabes? Do you believe or do you know? And he says to me, sí. I'm like, this is not going anywhere. Forget it. I'm going to sleep. But there he goes, and he says to the guy, where were you during World War I? And the guy says to him, io no parlo italiano. And he says back, I don't believe you. Where were you during World War I? He said, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, he didn't say, I don't know, because his hands were tied up. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. He must have lived in Israel. I don't know. So he says, I'll tell you where you were. You were in the Italian Alps. And he says, what? He goes, you were in the Italian Alps, weren't you? He goes, why would you say that? He goes, I know you're in the Italian Alps. He said, how do you know I was in the Italian Alps? He said, because I was also in the Italian Alps. He said, what are you talking about? He says, you don't remember? You were the scout, weren't you? You found a group of soldiers. You remember such a thing? Were you in Italy? He's like, okay, yeah, I guess I was. How did you know that? He goes, because when you turned around and said, if you're going to shoot them, shoot me first, I was standing behind you. And you saved my life. So if you saved my life, I'm going to let you go. But you don't tell anyone this story. When I told this story to my kids, one of them goes, well, I guess he told. Okay, he waited until the guy is gone and then he told the story. You think when you help someone else that you're helping someone else. When you help others, you help yourself. So at the very least, do we daven for them? Do we do something? So then we get to the famous line, which you've heard before. The Gemara in Bava Kama says, Kol ha'mavakesh rachamim al chavero, v'hu tzarich la'oso davar. Hunene tchila. Anyone who davens for their friend, and they need the thing that they're davening for their friend, they are answered first. Anyone who goes to such thing, they're answered first. An amazing, amazing concept. You go ahead and you daven for someone, you're going to be answered. But not only answered, you'll be answered first. Mida keneged mida, you got out of yourself or do someone else. Hashem says, I'll get out to do for you. Amazing. Amazing. And we know stories galore. Stories galore about it. Do we stop and at least daven? So we say the idea of tzedakah, of helping, finances, doing something. When you go and you help someone, you give 10, you'll get 90. You go and you save their life, your life is going to get saved. You give someone some Coca-Cola, you'll get Coca-Cola. You'll get saved. Do we go ahead and do we rent this idea? And I want to tell you an amazing, amazing, amazing happening that happened to one of my friends. He lives in Eretz Yisrael. My friend's name is Yisrael. Yisrael. He was zochet to have a child. But then he fell into what's known, many perhaps know, something called secondary infertility. He wasn't able to have other children. So he's davening, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. After 5 years of not having children, he calls up, he had another friend who was going through the same thing. So he said to his friend, he says, how about we daven for each other? Says Yisrael to his friend, how about we daven for each other? I'll daven for you, you daven for me, and then everything will work out. What do you think? He says, a great idea. So they go ahead and they start davening for each other. They start davening for each other. And they are davening for each other. They're putting everything into it. You'll see how amazing this is in a minute. The following year, they find out that each of their wives, respectively, are expecting twins. Each of them are expecting twins on the same date. The following year, they each gave birth to twins. But my friend had the twins a few days earlier. He suggests, what do you say? I'll daven for you, daven for me. Hunene tchila. But they both daven for it, and you can imagine they were davening for themselves as well. And when they were davening for themselves, so you get a bonus. You daven for him, one for you. Everybody gets the baby. You get a baby, you get a baby, you get a baby. They walk away with it. Unbelievable. You go ahead, you daven for someone else, you think that you walk away with something. We walk away with much more than we could ever imagine. Now it's getting late, so I gotta wrap this up a little bit. I'm not gonna fully wrap it up yet. What I want to do is just like this. I want to share with you one more story. Oh gosh, at least. Oh, there's so much to tell you. I want to share with you one more story. I then want to sing you a song. After I sing you a song, whatever the Kolisha thinks, so don't join. And then I want to tell you one last story, one final idea, and then we're done. Here's the story, song, story, recap, point, finish. Here we go. The story is, and like I mentioned before, when I told my friend that I'm speaking about this, of Shlomo Farchi, we were driving in the city. We were on Lexington Avenue and 63rd. Do they meet? Anyway, we were there. I think. I don't know the city for the life of me. I don't know it. And what happens? They go out and they're sitting there. We're sitting there and he tells me, yeah. I'm like, do you know any stories that could help me about this idea? He's like, no. He's looking at his phone. He's like, I don't know any stories. Except for this one. This is the most incredible story. He said like this. This is phenomenal. And he said, but I can't tell you the story. I said, why not? He said, you can't tell it. I said, why can't I tell it? He said, because people might know who it is. So you can't tell it. I said, come on, it's a good story. Let me tell it. I said, at least tell me. So he tells me the story. I said, that's a great story. He says, but you can't tell it. I said, why? He said, the person might be upset. I said, call the person. So he called the person. Right there. This is 2 hours ago. And he calls the person. He says, I am sitting next to Gavriel Friedman. Do you know who that is? No one knows me as Gavriel Friedman. That's like my Clark Kent. And he says, who, Rav Gav? He's like, yeah. He goes, he's speaking and he has a story. Can he tell your story? He said, sure, why not? I'm like, great. Here's the story. I'm not going to say the name. I don't feel comfortable. And I forgot the name. Here's the story. There was a couple, and this couple couldn't have children. And year after year, they're davening and davening and davening. It's not happening. But they want to have children. And Chazal even say that if there's another way of having children, if you can't have children, call them a gadol. Anyone who goes ahead and raises a child, kilu nodel, it's as if you gave birth to them. And there's a whole discussion in the Rishonim, what does that even mean? How far does it go, etc. But fine. So they decide they're going to adopt. So they adopt a baby. And after they adopt one baby, they said, you know what, let's adopt another one. They adopt a second baby. And after a few years, they adopt a third baby. And then one day they get a phone call from the organization that they were adopting babies from and said, listen, we have never done this before, but we really need some help. And if we didn't know you and we didn't know where you were going, we wouldn't do this, but maybe you could take another child. And they say, well, what do you mean? Why? He said, because this child is connected to the previous children, and it'll be very good. It's a sibling of the children, and it'd be very good if you could take this one also. And they're like, okay, they think about it, and they say, you know what, fine, we'll do it. We'll go out of our way. It's not our own child, but they'll be our own child, and we'll do it. We'll give, it's worth it. When he went to discuss this with his wife, though, I guess he made the decision on his own, or maybe they both made it. His wife then said a few days later, I'm just a little bit nervous, we're not going to have room. So he goes, what do you mean we're not going to have room? We have room in the house, and we have the 3-bedroom. We have another bedroom we just made recently. It's no problem. We'll give room. And he goes, no, you don't understand. I just came from the doctor. I'm expecting. Okay, so we'll make room. You know, what's one more baby? I mean, that's amazing, incredible. She goes, triplets. Yeah, you're right, we don't have room. I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll make it happen, you know? Should we not take the baby? No, we have to take it. We can't not take the baby. The baby needs to be taken. 3 other siblings, how can we separate them? We're going to take the baby. So they had now 4 adopted children and triplets. Okay, so then you'll ask, well, hold on one second. That's not equal, right? Because it's triplets and then 3, but there was a 4th one. Tomorrow night, this couple is making a chasana for the 4th biological child that they had the years after. They went ahead and they said, chesed, we have to help, we have to do. The Ribbono Shel Olam says, you're not having children. I'm sorry. That's the emes. Chesed. You've just changed the emes. You changed the emes in a way that now, okay, I'm going to give you, can I give me the 3? We'll give you 3. 4, we'll give you a 4th. The chasana is tomorrow night. So let's do like this. We're going to do it again like now, like we said. A quick recap, unless I was supposed to sing now. I don't remember. I forgot my order. Let me sing now. Because there's a stage. I got to get the right key. That's good. Okay. Don't sing. I'm going to sing to you a song, and when I finish singing the song, I'm then going to explain to you what the song is. I want you to listen. I want you to close your eyes and listen to the words. Okay. C. Ding. Is there a guitar up here? Okay, we tried to get one before. Acheinu kol beis Yisrael, Acheinu kol beis Yisrael, Anisunim Batzara uvashivya, Hamdas in Bain Bayom. Listen to the words of Bain Bayah Basha. Hamakom Yirachem Aleihem Yotziei Mitzara Lirvacha Yomeafel Aliyara Umishivun Legeula Ashta Bagala Uvizman Kari Listen to the words. I know, I'm available. Bar mitzvahs, weddings, funerals. Listen to this. The funeral thing, maybe not. We say Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael every day. Maybe not every day, but we daven. Every Monday and Thursday we say it in the davening, after laning. Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. All of our brothers, all of our sisters, all of our family, Hanesunim Batsara Uvashivya, they're found in a tsar, very narrowness, confined, Uvashivya, they're found in some sort of captivity. Ha'omdim bein bayam, bein biyabasha, whether they're standing there in the oceans or in the dry land. Hamokum yerachem aleim, Hashem, Hamokum is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like I heard beautifully from a Pesach Kron. Hamokum means Hamokum, Hashem is the place, He's everywhere. Hamokum yerachem aleim, please have mercy upon them. V'yotzieh meitzara l'irvacha, take them from that narrowness to expansiveness. And from the darkness to light, and from being confined and enslaved to redemption. Hashta now, ba'agol v'zman kariv, a beautiful tefillah, and we daven that. V'nomar amen. Amen group. V'nomar amen. And we say this, and we daven this, and we say this, and we sing it. Sometimes you go to a kumz, it's everyone, hey. And are we thinking what we're saying? And we think, Hashem, I'm davening for them, that you should help them, that they should be saved, to help them. Everybody knows the story of the cattle cars. The Holocaust. The Jews are being led to the end. Men, women, and children stuffed into the cart, and it was freezing temperatures. Freezing temperatures. Tell them I'll come back. Freezing temperatures, and what do? In these freezing cold temperatures, there was one young man. The young man saw an older man and said, that guy's not going to survive this ride. I have to do something to help him. So he decides he's going to go next to him, he's going to warm him up. So he goes next to him and he's rubbing his arms, and he's hugging him. And when he saw he was losing it, he started rubbing harder, and he would hug him, and he said, don't, stay with me, we can do this, don't worry, stay with me, we can do this. And when he felt himself falling asleep, he pushed himself more. I have to help him. And he pushed himself, and then finally the train came to a stop after days and days. And he came to a stop, and he got jolted out of his trance state, and he looks outside and he sees it's just beginning to be light, and he looks around and he sees the man is alive. This guy did it. I saved him in the freezing temperatures. And he looks around the train and he sees every single person on the train, man, woman, child, young and old and had perished. They didn't make it. It was too cold. They didn't survive. And he thought to himself, oh my goodness, if they didn't make it, look what I did. Unbelievable how I helped him. Look how I helped him. What's the reality though? How did he survive? Because as he was warming him up, as he was giving to him, as he thought he was saving him, he saved his own life. Rabbi Isai, get it into our heads, understand what that means. What that means is when we go ahead, don't just walk out of here thinking, oh, I supported a nice organization. It's so nice. What'd you do last night? Supported. It's not supported, it's I got supported. It's I want to help, and that's Hamakom Yirachem. And when we say that, Yirachem Aleihem, because when you do that, V'yotzieh mitzara, who else is getting at? L'irvacha, I'm also getting at it. Ume'afer l'aliyah, from darkness to light, to Meshibud l'geula, and we don't even know what's happening. The next time we daven, we have to think about that and realize what that is. Maybe when we help someone else, when we help others, we help. When we help others, we help. When we help, we help. When we help, we help our. When we. You're almost there. Okay. Realize this idea. Okay, quick recap, end it all off. Okay, so we started from the beginning, very simply put. Understand the concept of what happened over here. I don't know, people want to have boys. I don't want to have girls first because they help a lot more. Then we go for the idea of Shach, and he goes, should I make a kiddush? Should you make a kiddush? 10 years of suffering, of course you're going to make a kiddush. And the idea is to give everything. Then the bottom line, we say sometimes you don't experience something until you go through yourself. So, we say the idea what happens, I go to the hospital, go to the hospital, realize what's going on over here, that we help the idea, you feel good, you think you're helping somebody, the reality is, what do we have? The cancer person goes in and give the idea of tzedakah. Oh, you're going to give tzedakah, it's so nice. No, you give 10, I'll give you 90. At the end of the day, we're the ones who are really getting over here a little bit further. We get the woman with the chickens, walking by, no, that was my kid in the thing. Then after that, we go to realize what a person goes, who knows what happens in the day, you're going to pray for someone else in the brain, and something going on, and afterwards actually to be me. Then we go, we say the concept of Rapam, chesed ve'emes. You go, you think you help someone else, and the end of the day, you're really helping yourself, and you get a little further, don't chop yet. Oh, you want me to stop? Right after that. We said ultimately when you help others, you help yourself. So listen carefully to this end over here. We're ending right now. Bli neder. Listen carefully. Again, I want to thank our corporate sponsor, Coca-Cola. But I do want to mention, I was speaking to a Bachner right before. And just 2 weeks ago, there was a bris that was made. There was a bris that was made for a family that waited for a baby for a long, long time. And when this baby finally came, just 2 weeks ago they made the bris. And who was the first call? He said, he called over Bachner and he said, why? He said, this baby cost the organization that you're sitting right now, Bonei Olam, it cost them $220,000. $220,000 they spent on this baby. If anyone here has children, would you not spend that money? Would you not, if you had the ability to have a child, to be able to give to someone, to be able to raise another Yid in Klal Yisrael, to give nachas ruach liyotzo, to give more? Of course you would. But said this young man, Rabbi Bachner, the reason why I called you is because I laid awake at night thinking, you're trying so much and you're giving so much money, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, $150,000, $220,000. Maybe one night you're going to say, Ad Kan, I can't do it anymore. So I called you first that you should know, that you should realize this baby is because you didn't stop. This baby is because you continued and you did this for me, and you're the one I had to call first to let you know that. Ladies, realize the fact. You may have helped the organization already, and that's fantastic. If you can help more, help more. If you can help more, if the chesed opportunity is there, do it. What does help mean? It means give of yourself. It means daven. And perhaps most clear in our minds, give cash. If that wasn't clear, I don't know how to make it more clear. I want to thank so much those organizing this event for giving me the opportunity to be here. It's a tremendous schus. They should have the schus and the ability to continue their holy work, Ad Me'av Ya'asrim and more. And I want to thank every one of you for coming out and everyone else, because if you had not come out tonight, it would have been very awkward. Thank you.